Well, good morning, everyone. It's June 5th, 2023. It's 9 a.m. I'll call this meeting to order. If you'd please rise with me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we always do, I'd like you to join me in a moment of silence as we think about how grateful we should be to live in the great state of Florida, in the great county of Flagler. And think about our first responders, our police, fire, and medical personnel that keep us safe every day. And also think about the men and women in the armed forces that guard our freedoms every day. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. I'll recognize Flagler Beach Commissioner Rick Bellhumer's in the audience. Good to see you. Varn Park is still closed. We're still doing beach replenishment work there. That's the Painters Hill, Beverly Beach area. There are no board or council vacancies at this time. I encourage you to keep your eye on that if you're interested, though. And if one opens up, please apply. We have some workshops coming up. We have a budget workshop this afternoon at 1 p.m. We have another budget workshop Monday on June 12th at 9 a.m. And we have a third budget workshop on Monday, June 19th at 1 p.m. And our next regular meeting will be Monday, June 19th at 5 p.m. To start us off this morning, we have a presentation by the A1A Strike Force and FDOT Flagler County Projects Update. This will be presented by the Florida Department of Transportation. And I see them. I see you back there. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Jack Adkins. I'm old, so. Okay. I'm Jack Adkins. I'm the Director of Transportation Development with District 5 DOT, and we are happy to be back here this morning. I was telling our team here as we were driving up, it's getting to be like old home week coming up here.
We see a lot, yeah.
We've been up here a lot, but we really enjoyed it, and we like the opportunity. We want to thank you for that. So our team today, I have Ty Garner and Catalina Chacon. And we really want to just give you, I know the A1A Strike Force and A1A has been the biggest reason that we've been up here, but we also have a few other jobs going, some very important projects for Flagler County. We want to kind of highlight you on those and where we're going and what's going on. But of course, you know, the spotlight is A1A, and that's the one everybody's concerned most about. And we're here with some good news. We've actually gotten some flexibility from Federal Highway Administration and our own folks up in Tallahassee, and we were able to use a new procurement method, at least for us in District 5. It is phased design build. Catalina will talk a little bit more about that, but essentially what that does is it gives us the ability to start on the project, get things going without having plans to 60%, without having all these requirements. So it gave us flexibility in the way we procured the contract, and it's going to give us flexibility and be able to expedite getting going on our project much quicker. So with that, I will bring up Catalina, and she's going to kind of go through the first set of our updates.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Catalina Chacon. So like Jack mentioned, I'm here to provide an update on specifically the A1A strike team. We've met with several of you in a one-on-one setting back in February. The The strike team focus area extends 13 miles in both Volusia and Flagler County, starting from Roberta Road in Ormond by the Sea, going north to Osprey Drive in Beverly Beach. We continue to meet on a monthly basis with the strike team members to continue updating on the progress. This is a timeline of events since we started the strike team. So we had Hurricanes Ian and Nicole back-to-back in the fall of last year. We started having weekly meetings in December of last year with the strike team members shown on the screen. We had Flagler County, City of Flagler Beach, Volusia County, DEP, Army Corps, and DOT. We started gathering data right away, survey and geotech borings to start developing potential solutions. And then we had 2 community listening sessions at the very beginning of the year, 1 in each county, Flagler and Volusia. And then we presented the community 4 alternatives for resiliency options along A1A. We received feedback, and then we went back to the community with 2 public meetings in February of this year, where we presented our preliminary final recommendations. We also had one-on-one meetings with commissioners, both Flagler and county and city commissioners at the end of February. In March, like I mentioned, we had our public meetings where we showed our initial recommendation. And then following that, like Jack just mentioned, we were able to secure in essence, we have a contractor and a designer on board with a phase design build. And like Jack just mentioned, that allows us to do a lot of activities concurrently in the hopes that we're gonna do a lot of things concurrently instead of waiting for one activity to end and start the next one, so we can start construction sooner rather than later. We are also working closely with the Federal Highway Administration to secure funding opportunities, federal funding. So we continue to have weekly meetings with them for the funding. So here on the screen, just briefly going to share the final recommendations from the strike team. The first one is moving forward with the Army Corps beach renourishment project in Flagler County. The current limits are still being worked out with the county and the Army Corps, but that project is moving forward. And then the other 2 recommendations are secant walls, buried secant walls. We have one that straddles Volusia and Flagler County. So this is near Gamble Rogers area. It's about 1.25 miles in length. And then the other one is in Volusia County by Ormond by the Sea, another 1.25 miles, starts from Sunrise Avenue to Marlin Drive. In addition to these recommendations, our team also looked at safety and operational needs within the project limits. So we are also proposing to do several pedestrian enhancements, and Ty he will be touching on those later in this presentation. And then finally, this is a picture of the secant wall. So those are the walls that came as part of the strike team. The picture on the left is the wall that was built on the north side of town within City of Flagler Beach. That was built back in 2018 after Hurricane Matthew. Obviously, it became exposed after we had the back-to-back storms last year, but we were able to bury it back. So those efforts have been finalized. And then the picture on the right is the final product back in 2018, which is what we're envisioning to be what we're proposing for the 2 new walls that we're proposing as part of the strike team. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a contractor and a designer on board, and right now their focus is securing a permit through DEP, as well as doing NEPA clearances so that we can proceed with construction. We anticipate these 2 efforts are a critical path before we can start construction, and we anticipate we be able to start mobilizing as early as fall of this year to begin the construction of the walls. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ty to provide updates on additional projects in Flagler County.
Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Ty Garner, Department of Transportation, Project Manager. Sorry about that. In addition to the A1A Resiliency Project, there are multiple other projects going on within the county we wanted to discuss with you this morning and just bring you up to speed on some of them. I'm sure you're familiar with most. Excuse me. The first one is Project 439124. It's a resurfacing from Osprey Drive north to Mariners Drive. The design is in progress right now, and construction is funded for the summer of 2024. In addition to the mill and resurface there, we've got multiple proposed mid-block crossings. We've got crossing upgrades at Varn Park and south of Westmeyer Place. We're also going to do a sidewalk connecting from Westmeyer to Varn Park on the west side of A1A to tie those crossings in together. We've got other crossings planned at Planters Walk and north of Driftwood Terrace and at Mariners Drive. In addition to that, we have project number 448795-1. That is a resurfacing from South 8th Street north to North 18th Street. The design is in progress right now. It is funded for construction in 2024. We don't have a lot of details on the upgrades yet, but we are looking at pedestrian crossings, some of which came out of the study that we did as part of the resiliency team. To upgrade those crossings. A lot of the crossings we're going to do up there will go with the flashing lights, what we call the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs. Not to use too many acronyms, but we love them. So we are upgrading most of those crossings to that.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So does that correspond, does that overlap the Army Corps project in that same area?
It does overlap
So what does that do
some.
to us from a traffic standpoint?
It does nothing it should not interfere with the Corps project at all. We will coordinate with the Corps' contractor and our contractor, of course, to minimize impacts to the traveling public. We know there's special event periods and certain times within the county in the city that we would definitely want to avoid. Those will be part of our contract to tell them that they cannot do lane closures during those special event times. I can't tell you for sure what it's going to do, but we will coordinate with the Corps contractor, just make sure that we're all on the same page.
The crosswalks you mentioned, there's one now that goes across the Funky Pelican, right there where you're going to repave. That's right where 100 comes into A1A.
Yeah, that one's already being
That's already
upgraded right now.
Right now. And
So the
so
one
where
on
would the-
100 and the one on A1A at the Funky Pelican, traffic operations just did some upgrades at the
Right.
Funky Pelican one.
And then I gather there's going to be another one? You're going to put in another crosswalk with
We're looking
flashing
at other
lights?
crosswalks between the county line and 8th Street. Right now, we don't have any project program for that, so.
Okay.
We're looking at other ways we can do this. One possible way is to extend the southern project down to the county line so we can do some repaving. We do have some pavement issues there that, occurred from the hurricanes. So we do need to address those. We need to address the mid-block crossings. So our director's looking for ways to handle that right now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you're already underway with that crosswalk improvement of the road to north of, I guess it's north of the 445219-1. That didn't start yet, right? The one you just briefed.
The north of 439124?
Well, it's actually where there's a RV parking.
Yes, that one's under construction right now, I believe.
Right, and that's going to improve the crosswalk, put in a flashing light there and all that. Is that
I believe it is, but let me get that for us and just to make sure.
correct? I mean, it kind of gives us an idea what it's going to look like for
Right.
these other ones, that's all. But
Commissioner
that's-
Dance?
Quick question. Will the resurfacing in Flagler Beach, those are designs in progress. Are there public meetings for those, or how can we review the design documents?
Anybody can review the design documents on cflroads.com.
Okay.
And there was already a public meeting on the 439124 up north, the community center up there across from Bing's Landing
Right.
up there. I can't remember exact name of that one, but our project manager, Joseph Fontanelli, did have a public meeting on that one. I don't know about the 448795. Let me look into that.
Okay.
And we can follow up with Faith and let you know if there is a project or a public meeting coming.
It's a good plug for the website, so everybody can check out
I
all
was
the
going to
projects.
mention that. Everything I'm telling you, I'm not the PM on this one, to be honest with you. I got my information from cflroads.com
Okay.
before I came here this morning, so it's a great resource. Any other questions
No.
Thank you.
on that? Okay, thank you. Next couple of projects I'd like to talk about is on State Road 100 and also State Road 11. The first one is 445-219-1. That is State Road 100 from North Palmetto east to Old Kings Road, goes under through the interstate. In addition to the milling and resurfacing there, it also has some safety improvements we're looking at. They're going to fill the sidewalk gaps where they can, where there's right-of-way to do that. They're going to upgrade the crossings, the crosswalks across the intersections at Landings Boulevard, at Bulldog Drive, at Town Center, at Memorial Medical, and Old Kings Road South. They're also installing and upgrading the signals at Belterre to Mast Arms and at Memorial Medical. And we're doing some safety improvements at the I-95 ramps to add the wrong-way countermeasures. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but it monitors the ramps. And if, with cameras and other devices, and if a car's going the wrong way, it starts some flashing lights, it notifies the local police and the FHP, and it puts up a warning sign to try to get the car's attention that they're going the wrong way. So this is something we're doing statewide at all the
And
exit ramps.
that's the 195?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir. And the last project I'd like to talk about is, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, before you get away from the 100 project, I did listen that you had asked Palm Coast if they wanted to paint the masts black when they put the new traffic lights in, because it kind of gives a better look. And they turned that down, apparently Palm Coast did, and they also turned down any additional beautification under the 95 overpass. That doesn't hurt. You're still going forward with the program, but what I'm concerned about on 100 there, nothing you're doing now is going to make it harder to six-lane that road at some point with all the development we've got going on that road. So I just want to, I don't think you would, but just to get reassurance that that's not going to happen.
As far as I know, we're not. Any mast arm improvements will be out of the clear zone, what we have out there today. And those will need to be rebuilt if we went wider road anyway because of a longer mast or a longer arm on the mast arm. Under the interchange, we're not doing anything there other than mill and resurface and doing the wrong-way countermeasures.
Yeah. Just when people complain later on about the fact all the masts aren't painted the same on the road, it wasn't our decision here in the county, it was Palm Coast's decision.
Understood, and we can look into that. I don't know where we are on that issue.
Yeah. Well, it was one of the things that you had to pay extra on above what you're, okay.
Thank you. The last one I'm going to mention is 447082. That's State Road 11. It's resurfacing. It's about over 12 miles of resurfacing. It starts at the Volusia County line and goes east to the US 1 intersection. The design will be complete soon, and construction is funded for later this year. So we're wrapping that project up. Primarily, it's 3R, it's resurface and rehabilitate the road to extend the life. However, there are some upgrades, some pedestrian upgrades in downtown Bunnell area. At Main Street, they're doing a crosswalk near Main Street, a raised crosswalk. Also, they're converting some of the 4-foot sidewalks to 6-foot sidewalks to make them a little wider and a little better where we can. And yeah, those sidewalk upgrades are from Forsyth to Main Streets. There's a couple other countermeasures in there, some safety measures, narrowing the lanes and doing a little bit of lane shifting to try to slow the traffic down as it reaches the State Road 100 intersection, or US 1, I'm sorry. But again, a lot of the information I'm giving you for those in the general public behind is cflroads.com, give you all that information. One thing I do want to mention, I'll turn it over to Director Atkins, the construction for 447082 also includes some intersection improvements at Cody's Corner that the director's going to talk about.
So the last little thing that we want to talk to you all about is Cody's Corner. This has been a highlight or controversial part of this project. And as you all know, unfortunately, since 2014, there's been 6 fatalities out there, several injuries, and then within the last year, we had 2 fatalities out there. So obviously, we needed to do something out here. We paying attention to what's going on and looking at solutions out here. So DOT did 2 studies since 2015, updated in 2019, and both of those studies recommended a roundabout for the greatest cost-benefit ratio and for safety. So as you all know, roundabouts are something that get people's attention, and they are very, people love them, people hate them. So we had some discussions with the folks in the community out here, and we've looked at problems that they've had, and we've tried to overcome those and talk to them, and I think we finally got a lot of concerns kind of put to bed. But in the interim, we did some other improvements. Some of the folks in this immediate area felt that maybe some countermeasures might be helpful. So we went out, we lit the stop signs, we did intersection ahead signs, we did rumble strips and several other things. And then unfortunately, we still had the fatalities. So everybody kind of knew that we had to get something that was a more permanent solution and a solution that was better for the traveling public. So we took a look at some of the concerns that were out there. The store on the corner, of course, Cody's Corner, they had issues with some access. They wanted to make sure their access stayed there. So we kind of addressed those. We got those worked out. We'll be doing a landscape center island, obviously with input from you all and what you'd like to see out there. Then there were concerns about big trucks coming through, semis and stuff. So we have a truck apron out there, increased pavement markings, and we're doing some intersection lighting. So we feel all these things will be helpful in not only kind of allaying some of the concerns of the folks in the neighborhood, but also for the traveling public as well. So one of the things we like to do when we...
This video gives an aerial view of what the intersection would look like with the roundabout and illustrates the proper movements through the roundabout.
So as you can see, our designers tried to take a lot of, we have the semis in there, we had trucks with boats pulling, we had the hay truck going through there. So we tried to take a look at those on all the modelings and work through those. And I understand, again, this isn't the first time that we've had these discussions with communities that are a little apprehensive about roundabouts. We've got 3 over in West Volusia now with another one coming, and they're really good. They function really well. And, one of the things that we hear a lot of is, well, older people have trouble maneuvering through those, which I take a little, I get a little upset at that when we think about that. But one of the interesting things about that is we were meeting with the villages a couple of months ago, and the villages have over 50 roundabouts in them. And that's what they use because of the efficiency of them. So they do work really well, and hopefully this one is designed It's a modern roundabout. You hear a lot of pushback from people that might be from the Northeast with these old roundabouts designed in the 20s. Certainly understand that. There's one down in Brevard County that's a horrible roundabout. Bad designs lead to bad feelings. These are pretty simplistic. This one will be, you only have traffic, two-way traffic, easy maneuver. Again, built so that larger trucks and some of the type of vehicles that are in community will be able to go through there. So we look forward to that project. And again, I heard somebody say the other day, when you have roundabouts, you may have some crashes, but those kind of crashes, somebody gets a fender rubbed or a bumper dinged, you're not calling an ambulance, So that's the one upside to those. So again, to Commissioner Dance and Ty's point, here's cflroads.com. You can find all the information you need there. There's the web address, and very informational, and it'll get you everything that you need to know about these projects. And with that, we're willing to take any questions. This is just for information. This was Secretary Perdue's initiative for us. He's come out with this. It's called the Compass. And you can see at the center is community. And that's kind of the focus of the DOT. I used to make the joke, this isn't the old DOT anymore. We're not coming in here with hammers to push stuff all over people. We're trying to work collaboratively with our partners and all the things that are important in our projects. The Compass kind of gives us that.
Chairman, just quick question. So on Cody's Corner, the decision has been made to go with the roundabout?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's good.
Yes, sir. And
Any
we
other
should-
questions?
Hopefully, construction will be beginning, I think, later this. Yep.
Anything else? Thank you, Jack.
Thank you
Thank
very
Thank
much.
you.
Ty, thank you. Now it's time for our community outreach. This 30-minute time period has been allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the chair. Community outreach is now open. Yes, Sandy.
My name is Sandy Elliott Schultz-Heiss, and I live on John Anderson Highway, Flagler Beach. And thank you very much, Commissioners, for letting me speak this morning. Good morning. The fact is, that, as you know, Flagler County was founded in 1917 by railroad tycoon Henry Flagler. Its cultivation of Irish potatoes led to its financial success. A lot has changed since then. In 2010, Flagler County's population was 96,065 people, 39,186 households, and 27,843 families. In 2020, our population was 115,378, 44,040 households, and 31,591 families. In 2021, I don't have 2023, but 2021, our population was 120,932. Flagler County population was up 25.9%. Compared to Florida's population, which grew by 15.6, that's a 2021. U.S. population, 7.3 growth. St. Johns County added over 100,000 from 2010 to 2021, up 52.9. Volusia, 14.1. New Cement, okay. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to go skip this. But I lived in New Smyrna Beach. I saw it, overgrowth. You can't get to a restaurant. People are selling their condos because they can't even enjoy Flagler Avenue. And by the way, during Tropical Storm Ian, it flooded the iconic Flagler Avenue. Daytona News Journal reported that Tropical Storm Ian, midtown Daytona streets turned into rivers quickly. What my point is that we are, skip to this, okay, in most of our U.S. coastlines, like New York, Charleston, Norfolk, Houston, San Francisco, and Miami are talking about constructing these tall concrete walls to protect the homes and properties from seas that are rising. Some climate scientists believe our sea levels will rise up to 31 inches. $5 billion is proposed to build a massive concrete wall around the fragile marine ecosystem in Biscayne Bay. My point is, this is what I would like to end with. I wish you would please consider removing the future comprehensive plan for the request to put in an 8-foot wide path down John Anderson Highway until such issues are addressed, such as environmental impact, stormwater, and potential flooding on John Anderson. Golf carts with four-wheelers would cause accidents. And that is our evacuation route. And also, the veranda advertises quiet side of life, tranquil setting, and uncrowded beaches buy now and build in 5 years. Last stretch of intercoastal property on Florida's coast. Is this what we want for Flagler County?
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
My name's Marcia Tanner. I have lived in Flagler County for over 50 years, and I live at 5000 John Anderson Highway for 41 years. And I knew Andy's mom and dad, and I used to love to go over to her antique barn, and we'd talk for hours, and we had Weimar and our puppies together. But anyway, a lot of good memories. I'm here to talk to you about the paved trail that you plan to put down John Anderson Highway. There are 96 individual openings and driveways on John Anderson Highway. It's not like we have gated communities with one entrance in and one entrance out. This is a safety problem for me and my neighbors because we are gated, and our gates are not on the county easement, but we have gates that we would open our gates and bam, excuse me, ooh, I killed it. There would be a speeding golf cart. How about an electric bike, Andy? How about ATVs, bicycles? We have 2 bicycle lanes. And maybe are you talking about little electric cars, for all I know. But this is a safety problem because we would pull out of our gates and bam, there'd be someone flashing across, and this is very dangerous. The way we are now, we have that county easement property that gives us, we can pull out and look both ways before we take out somebody. Okay, so that's my main situation, it's safety. From what I can see, you all would mow down huge trees that we have as our screen, and that's what makes John Anderson Highway so beautiful and it's scenic. Who's gonna pay for that? If you have to mow down our screen? Is the county going to pay for that? Who's going to pay to replace those big trees? Who's going to pay to move our gates and our mailboxes? You know, we've done really well in our neighborhood with all our people. When we want to go see each other, we walk in the beautiful grass ditches, or we walk on the road, or we ride our bicycles on the bicycle paths. And the other thing is an intrusion possibly from the public. This may sound creepy to you guys, but this is how I've grown up with my husband and the type of business he's done. I frankly saw a homeless, I mean a really homeless guy on an electric skateboard booking it down 100. I really don't want him booking it down John Anderson. So it just kind of opens this up a little bit to people that we don't know. And this is another concern about me. So I'm asking that you reconsider and put that path someplace where people would love it, out west, where there's a lot going on with development. Why would you tear up our place that's beautiful? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think somebody needs to, I think I can do it. You want to turn that off so I don't,
Here he comes.
it's disintegrating.
Help is coming.
Help us.
He'll come, just leave it there. He'll fix it.
Bam! Emphasize. I'm John Tanner. I am fortunate to be her husband, and I also live with her on John Anderson. We've been there quite a while. And Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for listening to us. We'd like you to reconsider having this pathway on the list. Once, it's kind of like the camel's nose under the tent. Once it gets going that direction, it's harder and harder to reverse. In addition to the danger factor, the privacy factor. I know Commissioner Sullivan lives in a gated community, and gated communities are fine. People like that. They like the privacy, like the protection, and I applaud that. We don't have a gated community. We have individual gates, but I know Commissioner Sullivan and other people in the gated communities would not want to take down your guardhouse, take down your gate, and move the paved path into your neighborhood and have them drive up and down your streets in your gated community. And that's not because you're snobbish. It's because the reality of today's world is not everyone is nice. And there are people out there that are dangerous. Most of the families are still working families on John Anderson, and we appreciate you having moved that meeting the other day to an evening meeting. And I would like to address the process just briefly. We were told by the engineering department and by a commissioner that the issue of this paved path would not be discussed on the 15th. And then we found that it was. And of course, the chair called for public comment. There was none because public hadn't been notified. We think this should be reconsidered with an opportunity for the people that are directly affected can come in and let you know why they think these pathways are fine, but John Anderson is really not the right place for it. Our neighborhood is semi-rural. Most of the houses are on acreage, 2, 3, 4, 5 acres. We even have a ranch there right now, as you know, with horses on it. and it's different from the gated communities that most of the citizens of Palm Coast and Flagler County live in. We'll ask you to continue to protect the uniqueness. John Anderson is unique. It's been called John Anderson Scenic Highway since the 1800s. Sandhill cranes actually walk down the road. We don't need the intrusion of other vehicles. We don't need ATVs, electric golf carts, diesel golf carts for that matter, coming down John Anderson Highway. It would not only be a safety factor, as Marcia described, it would be a disruption of privacy. It would be like putting the same pathway into Mr. Sullivan's neighborhood, and I know that's not right. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, John. Next speaker.
My name is Celia Puglisi, and I live in Palm Coast. I'm a resident since 1991. First of all, I appreciate you letting me speak my 3 minutes, and I welcome our new lady, Leanne Pennington, in the county. I am here. I live in Palm Coast, about 8 to 10 miles north of the airport. I am coming again with the same issue that I addressed, and I have the letters from the FAA, from John Micah, from Mr. J. Jarrell, that was the director of the airport, and from the assistant, Ms. Sherman, to Mr. Goffey. Since 2008, I complained the same thing that I'm doing today, 2004, 2012. When I complained then about what I'm complaining now is this. I don't have peace and quiet in my home in Palm Coast, going out the door, or sometimes to sleep, because these flight schools are really breaking the peace. I cannot hear the birds. I cannot hear the quiet of nature in my backyard. And I have 15,000 square feet of a backyard, because this noise is the of these airplanes continuously. This happens since this county commission, in the beginning of the 2000 first quarter, decided to invite all these flight schools here. This airport is not fitted for these flight schools. I am sorry for my neighbors and friends that live next to the airport. Their homes were built before any flight schools you approved in this county. And this is the problem that we have. The county had a normal airport. It was normal. I experienced it. There was no problem. You invited the flight schools. And we have heaven, we have hell in earth. These flight schools, you have an airport with no radar, no GPS. This is a factor of safety for us. I don't know if the FAA is aware that this airport does not have 400 flights as the biggest, busiest airport, one of the biggest in the nation. No, they're counting the take and goes from these students as destination flights, which is not true. You should not count the touch and goes of these students. They're driving us crazy. We are taxpayers. It's not fair. So this is where I come here again. You have an airport that is not fit for these schools, for these flight schools. It's not fit for this. And if you want the arrogant flight schools here, we need to have a commission, a county manager that does not do it, a commission that does not do it, and an airport director that doesn't enforce the flight-friendly policy. Your brochure is incorrect. Reads very clearly, flight-friendly, voluntary flight-friendly. There is no voluntary. These arrogant foreign student schools, they enjoy taking the 3 miles of Palm Coast, only
Thank
3
you,
miles
Cecilia.
wide,
Thank you.
to do
That's it.
that. So
You're
I
done.
will appreciate you do something about it, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Gina Weiss, Quail Hollow Community. On May 30th, 2023, I sent an email to the county regarding 2 flight school planes, repeat offenders of our airport's noise abatement and flight-friendly policies and procedures, who once again flew dangerously low, 300 to 400 feet over our homes in the Z sections. The reply that Heidi Petito received from the airport staff once again was a standard parroted response about wind mitigation, which determines which runway to use. I understand it takes longer for planes to gain altitude due to wind resistance. So with this safety factor in mind, is all the more reason that unlicensed flight school students should not be performing continuous touch and goes at dangerous low altitudes and go haphazardly over our homes. Flight school students are not your typical airplane seasoned licensed pilots who take off, fly in one time, or out of the airport one time. This is a very different context. And having flight school students performing dangerously low touch and goes and stalls over our homes, especially on those very windy days. Flight school students touch and goes should be done over empty airspace so that the student has the best case scenario in the event of an emergency. That's what the FAA says. Most accidents happen below 1,000 feet. These are very concerning safety issues, and it is the county's obligation as well as the airport director to run a safe airport. There has been a change in the airport's scope of practice since these flight schools were invited in without public input, and this change is no longer compatible with our surrounding zoning and development. The county should have studied compatibility and set up noise monitoring and dealt with our community safety impact before allowing the flight schools in. And because that did not happen, does not mean it should keep on happening. The county owns the permit to operate the airport. We are looking for common sense safety first, because no one is winning when students are flying too low over our homes. The students are in just as much danger as the residents. The county has the obligation to the FAA. What we are asking for you to do is to follow up with what the FAA publishes and stay in compliance. This is about mitigating the county's liability, compliance, community safety, and pilot safety. The airport manager is a mere employee of our county. It was the county who adopted the flight training as part of our airport. Safety is not a hypothetical situation. I understand that commissioners take lots of problems from previous commissioners who were careless. And I want to thank all of you who are looking and listening at us citizens. I and my community look at you as heroes, okay, in addressing our issues. You are all heroes in the bigger picture by addressing citizens' quality of life and possibly saving lives in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Okay.
Next speaker. Hey, Richard.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman Hanson, Commissioners. Richard Hamilton, resident of Flagler County over in the Island Estates, in the A1A. There are two items on the consent agenda this morning that I noticed reading over the weekend that have a particular interest to me. And I don't know if you're going to pull them for discussion or not, but I thought, well, I'll make my points. I certainly don't mind discussing them with Faith and Adam separately. But one was a time-sensitive item, which is on your EV charging resolution. To, I guess your
What was the number?
I don't know the exact number
It's
on
on
your
the
agenda.
consent.
It's
I think
seven.
That's the letter to support EV.
It's a letter of support on the EV
I
charging.
believe that is in the general
8D.
business. It's
under
It's
business.
8D, general
We'll,
business.
we'll discuss it. So.
Okay, good.
And that will
Because
be discussed.
I fully support it. My only interest is trying
yeah.
to get.
That's going to get discussed because it's in paragraph 8.
Okay, I'll be back for that one then. And the second one was this map on the functional classification, which is updated every 10 years. And according to, that is on the consent agenda 7.0. Now, again, you don't need to discuss it, except there's an awful lot of things in there that you can't really see from the map that was in the package. And I'm interested to discuss is, do we have the appropriate classification on the A1A, on Old Kings Road south of 100? Could a different classification help us advance and get more funding on projects there? And a minor one is County Road 13, at least out from Route 1 to the fairgrounds, where there are some improvements that are potential to collect traffic or to do some improvements to at least reach the fairground, if not further west to Espanola. And perhaps a classification on those might be beneficial to us. So that's all I wanted to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next speaker.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation, and we're just here in case there are any discussion items for the functional classification. So please know that staff will be available here should there be any discussion for that item on the consent agenda. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. Next speaker. Seeing no one approach, I'll close public comment. Commissioners, any comments on the consent agenda before I ask you to what you want to pull? Any comments? Ms. Sullivan?
No, not this time.
Andy? No. Leanne? No. Donnie? Very well. I'll now ask if you want to pull any of the consent items. Commissioner O'Brien?
Yes, I wanted to pull item 7K. I don't have a disagreement with it. I just want to just highlight something on the item. And then also in light of Mr. Hamilton's request, 7.0.
Okay, 7-0. Ms. Pennington?
No.
I said it right. Mr. Dance?
No, I was going to do the 7.0 for
7-0,
Richard,
yeah,
but
right.
we're good.
Ms. Sullivan?
Just the I think it's, excuse me, 7Q, which has to do with the continuation of the berm project. And I'd just like to get kind of an update. In the last week and a half, I've noticed that we're putting sand in a lot of places now to store it before putting it on the beach. I did have some complaints from the north end of Old Kings Road, up just north of the airport, of the golf course up there, with a lot of trucks running up and down Old Kings Road, big heavy trucks going in there. And yesterday I was out driving, it just seemed to me that we're building up a lot of sand piles, getting ready to put it on the beach. And is that going to become a problem? Maybe weather keeps you from working on the beach, that kind of thing. So I'd just like a little discussion of where we are on that right now.
Where do you think we're piling sand?
Well,
Because up there, we're getting sand and taking it to the beach. We're not moving it, we're taking it to the beach.
From
From up there on Old Kings.
Yeah. I noticed,
That's the fine.
I noticed at Bay Drive Park, there's big piles of sand there that are
Right.
sitting there. And also, we continue to close another one. Anyway, just in general, I'd like to get a little feeling for what's going on there, because people are starting to complain. We're worried about the Old Kings Road getting torn up, for one thing.
Now, the sheriff's out there. I watched him give a ticket out there to one of the truck drivers.
They're having little
Yeah,
drag
they're-
races down the
Yeah,
road.
they're out there watching. We complained about that, and they've been out there.
That's the only one.
Mr. O'Brien, which is the one you wanted to pull? I'm sorry, I didn't.
K.
K and O.
So, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of 7K, 7O, and 7Q.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7K, 7O, and 7Q. We've already had public comment on this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. First up, item K, or Q, or K, yeah, item K.
Yes, sir. My only point there is, in reading through the documentation, just question for staff, I didn't see that we had an insurance, from a risk management standpoint, we had an insurance requirement for professional liability for the consultant. We do have that on our other contracts for engineers and architects and such, and I think it's important that we do that for a consultant as well. So that's providing professional services, unless I missed it in the documentation, but if not, I would request that we make that as part of the requirement for the contract.
Mr. Adid or Ms. Petito, do you have a comment on that?
I mean, I see we had the general liability and all the other coverages. I just didn't see the professional liability on there.
Actually, that was a standard form, and I had some questions about some of the coverage that was required. The employer liability, this is an entity that's not here to perform some construction project or something where they're on site. They're just doing research and writing and coming here and using our facilities. So, Mr. O'Brien, I think that we can include professional liability and we delete the employer's liability because it makes no sense.
Well, the employer's liability is part of the standard workers' compensation policy, and
It's built in?
yeah, and it is important because if they have a situation where one of their employees sues them in relation to a work-related injury that they sustained, then they should have that coverage. It's
Okay.
part of the normal workers' comp policy. So
Okay, I'll withdraw that, but we can add the professional liability.
Is that a motion?
I won't. Yeah, that's fine. I make a motion to approve item 7K with the addition of requiring professional liability from the consultant as part of the contract.
Second.
Been moved and moved and seconded to approve item 7K with the addition of a liability clause. I'll open up to public comment on 7K. Seeing no one approach, I'll bring it back to the board. All in favor of 7K as stated, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. 7O, approval of FDOT's Flagler County Functional Classification Map. Mr. Mengel.
A bit of time sensitivity on this, and so that's why we put it on the agenda. DOT had asked for us to have this come present. Adam Engel, Growth Management Director, and partnering with Faith and also with DOT and their consultant on bringing this forward. I believe I put the link on, maybe I had not, but much of this now is resident online. And so rather than going into great detail in the report, we had reviewed as staff the changes that we had gotten probably about a month and a half ago from DOT and their consultant saying, here's specifically what's changing because of the census, the reclassification of these roadways. And we wanted to have the county review this and make comments back, and we did that. And we were confident that what we had provided back to DOT was good feedback, and for the most part, we agree with their changes. I think there were two spots where we had some comments. We went back and forth. One of those, I think, was reported at the Flagler Beach council meeting, and that's not our concern. Lambert Avenue has a classification right now of minor collector. We believe it should be local. That's not our concern. It's not our road. We provided the comment to Flagler Beach. They can certainly make that change if they want to or not. It's their comment to make. But that's where we had left it at. And I understand your comment about the map at the scale it's at, but this is online, and so it's probably best viewed that way. But we did ask for a graphic to be included in your packet just so you could see kind of what's happening with that. But I can try to answer specific questions on any classification changes that have happened.
Sir, did you want to speak or just want to answer questions?
Oh, sure. So just want to clarify.
State your name again,
I'm
please.
sorry. Jason Learned with the Florida Department of Transportation.
Thank you.
So we've reached out to Adam, and one of the things I do want to tell you about the map, we developed the map, and it's a PDF, is a 36 by, it is a huge map, and it's really meant to be plotted out. So when it's printed as an 11 by 17 or 8.5 by 11 is on your agenda packets, it really is, you really can't see the labels and everything. So I just want to apologize for that. It's really something that ought to be plotted. And I do want to say that Flagler County is kind of unique in our district in that the rural part of the county, the functional classification changes have to be approved by the commission, but the urban part of the county is part of the River to Sea TPO, and we have been reaching out to the River to Sea TPO for all the changes within that area. The city of Flagler Beach is aware of the change that we proposed for Lambert Avenue, and they do seem to be in support of it. I was communicating, I believe she is the city clerk, who's a member of the MPO board. And in our last email communication, she said that she wasn't able to get it put on the past city commission meeting, but she is trying to do it for the future. And there does seem to be some support in making that a minor collector. And part of making that a minor collector means that that road will be eligible for FEMA debris cleanup reimbursement. So the DOT sees that as something as positive, so.
Thank you. Thanks for that explanation. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any other comments?
No, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Go ahead. I'll make the motion to approve, what's the item number?
7-0.
7-0 on the road classifications.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve item 7-0. Is there any public comment on that? Seeing no one approach, bring it back to the board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Item Q. Mr. Sullivan.
Right. I just thought this is a big project we have going on, and this is going to continue for a while. We not only have this major rehabilitation of the beach to 12 miles north of the Army project. The Army project's coming. There's a lot of trucks moving around the county, so I just think it's good for us to get an update on where we are on that. Is weather hindering the amount of sand we can get on the beach? Is Bay Drive Park open right now or closed? Have you been out there? I was out there yesterday. There's 2 giant piles of sand in the parking lot.
I will ask High Deputy to answer to this. It has nothing to do with the ongoing project at this time.
The sand piles, what she's referring to is the sand piles at Bay Drive Park. They were brought there by staff as part of an emergency measure, not part of her dune restoration work. It is open to the public, and
what are we going to do with that sand?
It will be either used on site or it'll be relocated.
It's emergency
It's
sand.
emergency sand that was placed there, not related to the
I know,
dune
but
restoration.
people driving around don't know the difference between that sand and other sand. But all I'm saying is, Bay Drive Park is not very usable right now, given that the entire parking lot has got two big piles of sand on it. I mean, big piles of sand, you know,
I've been
20
out there.
feet high. Okay, well, that explains that. I know on North Old Kings Road, you're not only picking up the sand, trucks going down there, but we're also fixing that 400 acres of land to make it better overall, to retain it as, open land. So there's a lot of activity going on, and I think it's always good to keep everybody up to speed on it so they don't get upset, like me.
Yes. Good morning, Faith Al-Khatib, County Engineer. You are correct. After these two hurricanes, there is a lot of construction projects going on, public projects. You heard FGT, one of their projects, they just finished dumping some sand behind their seawall there. Us, our major project, we started 1.5 miles. Right now, it's 11.6 miles to construct emergency dune project out there. With that said, also, as you know, the public, there's a lot of private property owners there. They're trying to protect their homes and their property. So all these trucks on our public roadway, it has to do with the safety of the public. It's needed. It has to be done. That's why we're trying to keep up with our roadway system to make it safe and open to the public and also to these commercial businesses and trucking operation. For our project, for the Dune project at this time, last week, our contractor just finished Painter's Hills, restored the dunes there, and are still located at Varn Park at this time. By the end of this month, they will be done with the hammock dune, approximately 1.5 miles of the dunes there. Then they're going to be relocating more north. At this time, we don't have the final schedule where they're going to be relocating. Our goal to let them done using Varn Park as a staging area and to open it to the public by the end of this month.
Yeah, I agree. And these projects are needed. We all know that. I just hope we're just be careful on the phasing and make sure we don't end up in conflict, say two different projects, kind of interfering with each other, that kind of thing.
We are doing our best to coordinate with everybody out there. Yes, sir.
I'm good.
Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve item 7Q, consideration and ratification of the following agreements concerning the berm renewal.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve item 7Q. Open up to public comment on 7Q. Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'm resident of Palm Coast since 1991.
And your name, please?
My name is Celia Puglisi.
Thank you, Celia.
Okay. I'm bringing to you an issue that of all Palm Coasters, especially the ones that live in between Old Kings Road and Palm Coast Parkway East, have noticed. Since they start the renourishing of the ocean front, which is welcome. We appreciate it's appreciated. We all use the beach, and it needs to be repaired. But as you all know, Palm Coast is the residents, taxpayer of Palm Coast are the ones that have to resurface, replace, repair our roads. And with this renourishment of taking place, all these heavy trucks come Old Kings Road, fully loaded, very fast, and also take our Palm Coast Parkway that is suffering a lot of tear and wear with that. Now, the county does not pay for our roads repayment, neither the state, but they're considered as a FDOT person that I asked right now, an official told me it's a public road. Now, the county, we have to pay for the additional tear and wear of these roads. We have a $52 million 5-year assessment now to be paid for those roads, and they are being tear down by these other projects that are outside of Palm Coast. So I appreciate Mr. Sullivan because he brought the issue already on Elkins Road, but I am adding Palm Coast Parkway, which you can see the potholes that have delivered lately. We haven't had those potholes so fast in so many years that I lived since 1991 in Palm Coast Parkway. So what are we going to do about it? Who is going to be helping Palm Coasters with 52 million on road repairs at least on 5 years? I'm asking you very please to reroute these trucks so they don't use the city of Palm Coast roads, further tearing them down, just to fix another problem, which we welcome. Do not create Palm Coasters a very expensive problem in our taxes. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Celia. Seeing no one else approach, I'll bring it back to the commission. All in favor of 7Q, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Just some comments on Mr. Tanner's and et al. Comments. We moved that down to the bottom of the list. And I'm not going to say it's never going to get done, but it's never going to get done, okay? Not going to happen. I'll do my best. I thought it was at the bottom of the list, but that's just a kind of a wish list, you know? None of that's funded, none of it's proposed. Not going to happen, okay? Leanne.
I checked with Heidi. I think it's at the last item on our FDOT list it was moved to on the
It's the
list.
last item.
And in regard, because when it was published last time, it was not on the list. It had been removed. I did check with Mr. Hadid, and because it wasn't quasi-judicial, the board could decide, which is what it did, to move it back without giving a notice to the public. So there was not an opportunity, I guess, to bring it back because it wasn't quasi-judicial. The board at any time can add anything to the list, is what I was told. So it would take one of you to decide if you wanted to, remove it again.
Well, it's up to me. I'll take it off, but we'll debate that at another time. So, okay, moving on to business, general business, item 8A, update to Flagler County Board of County Commissioners rules and procedures. This is requested by Ms. Petito and Mr. Hadid.
This item was actually worked on with Sean Moylan out of the Attorney's Office. As you know, the board's rules and procedures were already talked about at your March 6th and your April 3rd workshops, where you directed staff to take a look and make some revisions to those rules. As a result, we have shortened the length of the document, removing some things like in the form of definitions and items that were more like parliamentary terms and a list of the detailed breakdown of some of the advisory boards. Although we do maintain a list, we felt that it wasn't necessary to be part of that actual document. So what you have before you now is the red line version of those updated rules and procedures based on the input from the board.
I had just a format question. We say in the document that our meetings are at 5 and 9, but then we refer to 5:30 and 9:30 as, I believe we set that aside. We say that's public comment.
Public hearing.
Public hearing, yeah. Do we have to do the 2 times? Is that important? I didn't.
Your official meeting starts at 9
Right.
and 5 respectively,
Right.
but you cannot have your public hearings held prior to, you have to have a time certain.
Yeah.
So that's why we're calling out a special time, saying that
5:30
it
and
can't be, it has to be like exactly at that 9:30 or 5:30. It can be any time thereafter. It doesn't necessarily mean that it starts at 9:30, but you do need to put that notice out there. So.
And that's just for so the public knows
we
there will
could
be
add
no
the
public
words.
comment.
We could add the words or as soon thereafter, as we typically publish in the agenda. That is what we typically publish.
Yeah, I think that would make it a little clearer, yeah. That's the only comment I had, so.
We'll make that change.
Any other comments on 8A?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
and it's a little hard as I read through it. It's very long, and I was getting confused between what's current and what's being changed, but I didn't see any red lines on this. I think we said the TDC meetings are still held monthly, for instance, and that's not what we're doing now. They're quarterly. So I think, that was one, I mean, it's items like that need to be checked, because if it's the way it reads right now, as best I could tell, going through the document, it's not correct. So Amy Lukasik can probably, fix that for you. But that was a couple of, items like that. That's one I distinctly remember. Has that been cleaned up? I mean, I guess it's cleaned up, but.
That's this, that they get, there's in the backup, that's the.
Yeah, so
that's
that I think
for-
is still, so that was one minor problem I noticed.
Mr. Dance.
Thanks. I sent an email to Mr. Moyle and Mr. Hadid. It was late, so there's a few things that didn't carry over from our prior discussion. So I'm not quite sure if the current document, I mean, I scoured it and I've got a list of things that based on the minutes of the prior workshops and the prior red lines didn't get included. And one of the comments is about soon thereafter for those times. Funny thing is, it was redlined to come out in the last discussion, so it did, but I agree, I think soon thereafter should be, makes it clear, because not all the public hearings start right at that designated time.
No, that's what's confusing to me, yeah.
But it does tell people to come at that designated time, that the public hearing will be there or soon thereafter. So I think it makes sense. The only other thing, I think, following up on this, I put a note about ex parte disclosure, and part of it talks about the substance of ex parte communications. And all too often, we at the board just say, well, I got an email, or and I think we have to be more careful, and maybe there could be further instruction later about what substance of ex parte means, instead of just stating I got an email without stating what it was.
I agree, because I read that very carefully and had to go back and read it again
So I think
to understand the rules.
Just following could be better help from the attorney's office on how to do ex parte would be helpful. The big one was the failure to include the items, and again, this was added in the last edit but didn't get carried over, and that was the consensus from the commission on adding an item to the agenda. It's under the preparation of agenda section. The prior edit had specific language added about any commissioner may seek consensus to the commission to add an item to the agenda. And it got rid of the fact that any commissioner could add an item, and that didn't get carried over. So I don't know if we want to go spend the time today to get this wording right or bring this back. I'll leave it up to everybody. That was a big one that we spent a lot of time talking about that didn't get carried over.
We did.
And then code of conduct was not carried over. So the specific paragraph that stated each commissioner is subject to code of ethics, and it states the state chapter and everything. And then the line that said each commissioner shall strive to faithfully comply with the code of ethics adopted by the Florida Association of Counties. That didn't get carried over, though that was the consensus to be added. So that was under general provisions section number 5. And the only other thing I would add was that instead of just referencing the code of ethics to the Florida Association of Counties, we should add the language as an addendum or a section following it, so it's people can actually read what it is instead of clicking a link, because we found through sometimes clicking a link doesn't work to go to the next section. So those were the, and then on planning board, the other item was about adding continuing education, or at least an education component to bring new board members up to speed. And I don't know that I saw where that got carried over. So those are pretty significant items that didn't get carried over to this edit. And I would rather have a complete document come back to us. But I apologize. I got those comments late to the attorney's office, so they didn't have time to properly edit the document and bring it back to us. But I'll leave those I'll leave that up to additional comments for everybody else.
Commissioners, anything else to add? Well, I don't think we're ready to approve this, so I would entertain a motion to table it till the next meeting.
I'll make a motion to table to, Mr. D, do you want the next meeting or do you want to make it the next morning meeting?
It doesn't matter.
There's only one meeting in July anyway, right?
That's
So
correct.
to the July meeting.
That's correct.
They table it to the July agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to table the update to the Flagler County Board of County Commission rules and procedures to the July meeting. I'll open that up to public comment. Anybody in the public wish to comment on that? Seeing no one approach, I'll bring it back to the board. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 8B, changing street name from Hotel Trace to Osprey Way within the Ocean Ridge subdivision. Adam.
Got just a few slides on this to give you some orientation to where we are, and Hotel Trace showing up in the center here, running generally east to west between Hammock Dunes Parkway on its west side and Osprey Way on its east. And part of the justification for this coming from the Property Owners Association has created confusion in the neighborhood. There's no hotel there. And so for a purpose of wayfinding more than anything else, taking away the Hotel Trace name, you also have a sign that's present that refers to Hotel Trace Boulevard, a roadway that doesn't exist in our database. And so just to add to that confusion there, we actually have some signage that's not correct, private signage on a private roadway. But this being part of a platted road, it was designated through the plat for Ocean Ridge. You can see there, and this is turning it to have it oriented as it sits. Hammock Dunes Parkway along the west, and then again on the east, Ocean Way, Hotel Trace being that named street. The process for us to go through to rename this is through a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners. Prospective name is Osprey Way. And with that, I'll close, wait any questions or comments from the board.
The only comment I had, it said there was no other Osprey. There is one in Beverly Beach. There's an Osprey.
Not an Osprey Way, and so hopefully it's not going to be
Osprey
confusing for
Street,
everybody.
I think.
Yes.
Street.
And so that, and certainly we've got other names that are similar. And saw that just now with DOT's presentation, so. And then we also looked at that, just one other point I guess I needed to make. There is only one address, the guard shack. So there's only one.
No houses on that?
No houses on that at all.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve changing the item 8B, changing street name from Hotel Trace to Osprey Way within the Ocean Ridge subdivision.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8B. Anybody in the public wish to comment on this? Seeing no one approach, I bring it back to the board. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 8C, adoption of a resolution to vacate portion of the plat of the Armand Beach East subdivision. Owner John Beam, 4 Rosemary Place. Adam.
Don't see too many of these, but we are seeing more of them. That some of it, I think, is based on the nature of the business and how quick construction's happening, along with the busyness of surveyors. It's the best explanation I can give for you. This shows the property back in 2020, and you can see the subject property, and then look at the back of the home then to 2023, you can see the addition that has been made. And so what had happened in the submittal, and you had likely heard of this going also through a variance for setbacks. This is a unique situation in Armand Beach East where the setbacks and the drainage utility easements coincide. Both of them are 7.5 feet wide. As you know, we do allow eaves to extend into a setback. We do not allow eaves or any building to extend into a easement, a platted easement. And so we've had a variance process. That's been approved by the planning board. That's separate from your decision here. But this step is needed because not only do the eaves extend into the platted drainage and utility easement, but also a portion of the foundation of the accessory building that, and you'll see it here in just a few minutes. 9.58 feet is what it was intended to be constructed as both the setback from the side property line, inclusive of the easement, along with the setback itself. And then turning this just for orientation purposes, you can see where that construction was occurring rearward or to the west of the existing home. Then I zoomed in just to show the detail, and that we highlighted there, the applicant, the contractor at the time was aware of the easement being present and the need to stay away from that. The reason why 9.58 gave a little extra cushion, gave the ability for the eave of the home also to stay out of that easement. Then the as-built came in. The as-built, then orienting, turning it, better view here more than anything else is zooming in on it, and that shows that it was built at its closest point, 7.19 feet. This measured from the foundation, the wall, to the property line. So what we've done is we prepared the resolution with a description that's inclusive of the wall and the eave, and intending for you to have before you the partial plat vacation just for that portion of the home itself, the eave and the wall that extends into the drainage and utility easement. You're not then decreasing that drainage utility easement anymore, except for that amount of the encroachment. So we're very limited in what the request is here. These are photos that were presented by the contractor who came onto the job. This has a bit more of a history, and I think I shared some of it in the packet, that there was a contractor who had completed the work for the most part all the way up to the roof deck and then vacated the job. Contractor that's come in to finish it had assumed that everything was done consistent with what they had submitted, what had been approved. And so this is what they faced in February 2022. And so basically they had a completed structure. They were unaware until the time of the final survey coming in that they had any encroachment at all. And so you can see the extent of the work that was done. So that contractor then coming in wanting to finish the job, get it resolved for the homeowner that was also unaware due to the contractor effectively vacating the job, the first contractor.
So what I read was that the initial permit was correct, but the contractor violated the permit. He went too close. Is that right? Is that what?
That is correct.
Okay.
So with that, our recommendation is that the board approve the partial plat vacation as we provided in the resolution. We have the legal description there. I'll wait any questions or comments from you. Thank you.
Commissioners?
No further comment.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 8C, adoption of a resolution to vacate a portion of the plat of the Armand Beach East subdivision for owner John Beam.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve item 8C. I'll open up to public comment.
Okay, does this set a precedent?
Say your
for
name
many-
again, please introduce yourself.
Celia Puglisi.
Thank you,
Pampos.
Celia.
Does this approval set a precedent for many more coming, alleging maybe favoritism? I am concerned about that. Could we be opening the door for other issues like this that with the growth that we are having might come up to us and they will be deemed, yes, because there is a set precedent? And what will be the consequences of approving many of these exemptions in the future regarding the original planning or zoning, whatever? That's what is my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good comment.
Mr. Chair, I would just point out in my 7 years of serving, this is the first time we've ever had one of these items. Right. And there's also another concept that's called grace.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a very small thing.
Okay, seeing no one else approach, I'll bring it back to the board. All in favor of 8C, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 8D, Consideration to partner with the City of Palm Coast to pursue the Department of Transportation's Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program with our municipal partners, and to provide a letter of support to the City of Palm Coast.
Good
Ms.
morning,
Albanese.
Commissioners. Yes, Holly Albanese, Chief of Special Projects, Library Director. I have with me today Maven Rogers. She's from the City of Palm Coast. She's their Chief Sustainability and Resiliency Officer. So she's here really for the technical part, should you have any questions about the grant itself or any technical questions on EV charging in particular. So I'm going to go through a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up for any questions, of course, if you have questions along the way. So basically what we're doing is looking at getting on board and supporting, at least supporting the grant, if not partnering with the City of Palm Coast and the coalition for this grant program. It was established by an infrastructure bill, and it's to deploy publicly accessible electric vehicle charging and other alternative fuel infrastructure. There's two funding categories, the community grants and the corridor grants. Both community and corridor grants are included in the funding opportunity for fiscal year 22-23, up to $700 million. When the City of Palm Coast started this, they decided to partner and reach out with our other municipalities. I think that this helps to strengthen their grant request, and they are working with a consultant to assist with writing this grant. So they've created what's called a Flagler Regional Electrification Coalition. That includes the City of Palm Coast right now, City of Flagler Beach, City of Bunnell, and last I heard, the Flagler County Schools was going to get on board. There's also an educational component to this grant, and so the Daytona State is also working with the City of Palm Coast on this grant. And so we would just be adding to that. My understanding is that the county just strengthens their ability to, in the process of requesting and applying for this grant. So the goals of this coalition are to alleviate the energy burdens, strengthen the grid systems, and promote renewable energy. And so we want to make it accessible to our community, make it convenient for them to be able to charge their vehicles. Oops. Oh, so why EV charging? Well, currently, the communities at the coalition, we lack significant EV infrastructure at this point. The City of Palm Coast has one at this point. Regionally, there are private entities, and there's approximately 22 chargers around the county for a population of 124,000 plus. Now, expanding the availability of charging stations across the communities will bring that convenience and accessibility that I spoke about just a second ago for both residents and visitors who rely on EV charging, and will promote the use of EV vehicles. Flagler County is also vulnerable, as we know, to climate events, including flooding, hurricanes, that necessitate evacuation. During these critical times, access to EV charging infrastructure becomes even more vital. EV chargers can ensure that the electrical vehicle owners have the means to charge their vehicles and extend their range, facilitating a smoother and more efficient evacuation process. As a tourist destination as well, Flagler County, but in particular Flagler Beach, having these EV charging infrastructure will also support tourism by attracting electric vehicle owners who rely on charging stations during their travels. The infrastructure that is eligible through this community grant are EV charging, which is for the electrical vehicles, hydrogen fueling, natural gas fueling, compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, and propane fueling. We are, as the coalition, City of Palm Coast is really looking at the electric vehicle charging. They are looking themselves from what they call multimodal, so they will be having various types, so level 2 fast charging as well as electric bikes, that type of thing. So we here in Flagler County, if we choose to partner, we'd like to start off slow and have some level 2 chargers in various locations. The funding that's available, as I said before, there's 2 different grants, the community program grants, and then there's corridor program grants. Again, we are looking at the community program grants. The minimum anticipated award is $500,000 with a maximum of $15 million, and there is $350 million available for that particular program.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, is that statewide or is that just for Flagler County?
As far as what's available, no, that's countrywide. Yeah, it's nationwide because this is a federal grant. So $350 million
And
is
is there
what's
any
available.
match involved?
I'll get to that. That's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that right now, the match. So the federal share, there's an 80-20% match. We know previously we did not go to this EV program when I believe it was FPL, and the reason why was because of a match and ongoing maintenance and electricity costs. Yes, there is a 20% match. However, they are allowing that there are contracts in a condition that the private entity that we contract with will be responsible for that share. There will be a warranty, and working with the city of Palm Coast, that's my understanding, is that yes, it's 80-20, but the private entity that we'll contract with, they would pay our share of the 20%, and they would actually, they're the ones who would get the revenue because this will create revenue. So they would get the revenue and they would pay the utility costs, and there would be a 5-year warranty. So they would maintain these as well. So while, yes, there is an 80-20, all the cost is going to be borne on the side of the private entity that will be operating these if we choose to move forward with this program. However, the city of Palm Coast has selected to actually pay their 20% match because they want to collect the revenue. When they collect the revenue, they can then put that money back into more EV charging and/or other transportation efforts. And I know Maven can speak more to this. So what is eligible? Any project that is expected to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, infrastructure that's publicly accessible for charging and fueling infrastructure, and the projects may be located on any public road or in any other publicly accessible locations, such as parking facilities at public buildings, public schools, public parks, or in public accessible parking facilities owned or managed by a private entity. So looking at what's eligible as far as costs are concerned. So acquisition and installation of the infrastructure, any related construction or reconstruction, acquisition of the property if it's necessary, development activities including planning, feasibility analysis, revenue forecasting, environmental review, preliminary engineering design work, and other pre-construction activities. We may contract with a private entity for the acquisition, construction, installation, maintenance, or operation of eligible infrastructure included in the project. And this is all part of the grant. And then the last piece is the educational and community education engagement activities, which I know the city of Palm Coast is pursuing that educational component with Daytona State, as I referred to. There are minimum standards for EV chargers, and so we're required to comply with applicable sections of the EV charging minimum standards. And these standards will specify the technical aspects of charges, including the connector types, the power levels, payment methods, and more. Where we, in particular in Flagler County, the staff has deemed that if we move forward with this project and the commission approves it, we'd like to do the level 2 chargers, which take a little bit longer than the fast charging, but it also reduces the utility costs even though we will not be paying those, but it does reduce the utility costs. So statutory selection priorities. So this is the priorities that the federal government has set for the grant program. And so their priorities would be rural areas, low and moderate income neighborhoods, and communities with a low ratio of private parking spaces to households or a high ratio of multi-unit dwellings to single-family homes. So in areas where there's a lot of multi-unit dwellings like apartments, where maybe your home might have an EV charger, a multi-unit apartment facility may not. So by establishing this network of easily accessible EV charging stations throughout Flagler County, the community can promote the use of electric vehicles to their residents, reduce reliance on fossil fuels, attract visitors, cater to the specific needs of its population, and enhance emergency evacuation efforts. The comprehensive approach fosters sustainability, supports economic growth, and improves the overall quality of life of visitors and residents alike. So I'm just going to go through an overview real quick. So what we're saying here is the City of Palm Coast is leading the effort to pursue this particular grant, and we'd like to get on board as partnering, and if not, at the very least, providing a letter of support to help them in their pursuit of the grant. Second, alongside the City of Palm Coast, the City of Bunnell and Flagler Beach have also joined efforts to increase charges throughout the region. And Maven can speak to specifically where those locations will be in those in the City of Bunnell and Flagler Beach. And also, as I said, the school board is now getting on board with this program. And also Daytona State will cover the educational component. Again, the grant covers 80% of the costs, and the private industry would cover the other 20% with a 5-year warranty, and they would also pay for the maintenance. We would not receive any revenue. They would receive the revenue if we go with this particular method. As I said, City of Palm Coast is choosing to pay their 20% so they can collect the revenue. The utility costs, City of Palm Coast explained that roughly about $316 per month for a single level 2 dual charger. That cost, the private entity would cover that, and we would have to ensure that that was done through part of the bid process. That would be put into the bid specifically, that they would cover the cost of the electricity maintenance, and they would actually get the revenue. We have already identified 3 possible locations in the county, including the Government Services Building, the Flagler Executive Airport, and the Flagler County Public Library. In the future, the possibility of maybe putting some out at the tourist center that we're looking at building, and if that happens, that would be a good location for tourists to be able to, as they're driving through 95, to stop and encourage them to stop and charge up their electric vehicle while taking, getting the benefit of the tourist center. So again, City of Palm Coast has requested a letter and the ability to add Flagler County as a partner in order to expand into county areas. So our decision today is whether we're going to partner with them or not. And at the very least, they would like a letter of support so that they can use that to make their grant stronger. So we're open to any questions.
I think you answered, I've been trying to find out, remember the FPL was going to put charging stations out in our parking lot.
Right.
And so I think you answered it. We decided not to do that?
Yes, I believe the concern was the utility costs and, taxpayers, because obviously it would come from tax dollars, and that was the concern.
Mr. Chairman, just on that, that's not the only reason we said no.
Right.
We said no because the chargers were going to provide free electricity at no cost to the users. And I absolutely will never agree to that.
The users will have to pay for it.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Maven Rogers. Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for letting us come up here and talk today about this grant opportunity to address your comment, Commissioner Sullivan. So right now, we are on the onside of electrification revolution in this country. Fossil fuels are not only a non-renewable resource, but they're volatile economically, reliant on international agreements and agents and relationships. Electrification allows us to have domestic policy set in place here in the United States that gets to set our miles per gallon that we get to drive instead of relying on other agents. So we see gas is going up and down. If we control that, we can control how much our residents get to pay for gas. Right now, the average is $1.22 per gallon of gasoline for an electric vehicle. If we provide this service for our residents, they can put money back into local economy, not at the Shell gas station. So that's a wonderful thing. For the electricity, the different charging companies will come in and pay for that electricity. So if you all are worried about that, there's different contracts. We've been talking with a lot of different charging companies right now, and they have the availability to pay that electricity bill. And you all would be reimbursed, or we can write in the grant in such a way. Also, I've been in conversation with the charging companies as well, that they will provide, if we do the right procurement and the right bid, after 5 years, if you all do not want these chargers, they will remove them, no cost. So that's something that we can also put up to bid. There's all different kinds of things that are going to happen with this grant that, you know, as we come closer, 20% can be covered by a private entity, but maybe Flagler County decides, hey, we want to collect some of those charges to go back into more EV infrastructure, or, you know, possibly even Title 23 transportation projects, which is also allowed. We do know that the transition of government fleets to electric will save money. It saves maintenance costs. It saves fuel costs. There's no longer oil changes. So if you were to decide to possibly collect revenue from this fund, it could possibly go to that transition in the future, which would, in the longevity of things, save you all money and save the taxpayers money. This is a small pilot program with 3 or 4, and we can, again, write it in such a way where after 5 years, they can be removed if decided to do so. Yes. So there's a lot of different ways that it's going to come down if we are awarded the grant, what 80/20 looks like.
Just, Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions. Who owns the parking spaces?
So every one of the parking spaces that are applied for the grants are public, besides one, which is the City of Bunnell. We're entering a private-public partnership where their new construction of City Hall, there's a private contractor there. It's an engineering firm, I believe. And
Okay. But if I drive in there with my fossil fuel car and it's a public parking space, I just pull in there and park? Can I do that?
Not in the EV parking spaces right now. But we're doing a ratio. So Ford, GM, Nissan, every huge car manufacturer in the United States have electric vehicle goals. So it's only a matter of time before our residents adopt electric vehicles.
Okay, a couple more questions. You push this in order to politically get people to approve it. You say it's going to be for low-cost areas and all that. I know of no low-cost housing areas where people are buying $50,000 plus electric vehicles. It just isn't not happening. They're not going to be using electric vehicles for a long, long time in those kinds of areas. Also, during the storms on the west coast of Florida, it was proven that it's an incredibly dangerous situation to have salt water get up underneath an electric vehicle. We live on the coast, so I don't know why it would be great for Flagler Beach to have electric vehicles, which are extremely dangerous in any kind of saltwater intrusions. And in general, and I'm sorry I'm like this, but in general, I am absolutely against the government mixing into electric vehicles are going to do fine, and we're going to have plenty of them, but it'll work the same way it always has in the United States. If you can make a profit doing it, buy the land, buy the property, and charge for the electricity, fine. And I think that's all going to happen. I really don't like the government getting involved in this. It's too unfair. It never works out. And the people driving electric vehicles are not low-cost people. So I am against this motion, just in general.
Commissioner Sullivan, I understand your concerns. And as we see more electric vehicles be produced, there will be more used cars that come on the market that will be more affordable. I agree with you. I don't think that there's any point of putting EV chargers in low-income neighborhoods, but there is the future where we will have low-income residents driving electric vehicles. So to get that infrastructure ready would be essential as we have this money deployed now.
I mean, I hate to argue all the time on this, but, as soon as you have to replace the battery in an electric car, it's incredibly expensive. So I don't think anybody's going to buy used electric vehicles because it's going to cost too much to put them back on the road. But anyway, just in general, that's fine. This came up before the board earlier. They were going to pay for the electricity too, and we voted against that. I don't see anything that's changed that would change my mind on this.
So if we approve this, we're saying the city will put charging stations in the county areas, and they will operate them and collect the money from them. I think that's what you said.
No. So they're going to go out into different bid processes based on what the cities and county want, because there's different avenues here. You can collect revenue or you don't have to collect revenue. Some of our cities do not want to collect revenue. If you do not want to collect revenue, the private entity comes in, covers the whole 20%, 5 years warranty is written, and you all would basically, if something goes down, you would call ChargePoint, right? Or whoever the bid processing is, that charging company.
And explain the difference between fast charging and level 2 charging.
So fast charging is basically you can go from 0 to 80 in about 20 minutes. And in level 2, you can go to 0 to 80 in about 4 to 6 hours. So it is a much heavier pull on the electrical grid. It is much more expensive. A fast charger, just to get the infrastructure, is going to be roughly around a high estimate, around $90,000. Where a level 2 charger with the infrastructure is going to be around $40,000. That's just kind of a rough estimate based on if you don't have the electric underground that you need.
I just
Mr.
find
Chair.
it hard that you're going to park your car for 4 hours, let it charge. Yeah.
There's no financial burden to the county for this.
Okay.
We're signing a letter in support of this grant application for the city, which is showing good faith in supporting our municipal partners. To counter something that, for Mr. Sullivan, the person that lives here in the county is not going to use these chargers. The people that will use these chargers will be visitors and tourists, because if you own an electric vehicle, you're going to charge it at your house. Okay, right. Like I experienced this in the spring. Was down in Melbourne with someone that owned electric vehicle, and we were traveling, and they had a hard time finding a charger, and they didn't live there, because if they lived there, they would have charged it at their house. So this is a different scenario than that was brought before us before, because there's no electrical cost to the county to do this. The only burden on the county at all is the allocation of 1 or maybe 2 parking spots in one of our municipal, one of our county properties. So I think it's a little bit of a different ask than what we've looked
I agree
at
it's a
before.
different ask, but it still is one way or another, whether it's a 20% match, in case we get involved. We're saying the government, I still pay taxes in Palm Coast. So the Palm Coast is saying, we're going to spend 20%, we're going to pay the 20% match for installations we put in. I am against spending any tax money to support private industry.
But not from the county standpoint. That's a city decision.
But
the person
by
that
supporting
purchased,
the letter, we are, and you pay taxes at Palm Coast also. We are still supporting our tax money being used for this program.
And quickly to clarify, the council has not voted yet on the 20%. It could go either way because there's a lot of different deals that will come up on the table because we will have purchasing power.
Can I ask one question? When the person that pulls up and uses the charger, they're paying for that electricity to the vendor, same as you would if you went to Wawa and used one of their chargers.
And by the way, Wawa does have them.
Yeah, I understand. It's the same, it's the same process. But my question is, do they pay, is there an associated fuel tax or, you know, that we collect locally for their purchase in the electricity? I don't know the answer to that question.
No. So the city of Palm Coast is exploring different options on that tax. The state of Kentucky is passing a 3-cent tail tax on per kilowatt hour that they're charging. Also, the state of Florida did look into this, adding about $200 to the vehicle registration fee every year for EV drivers. It was denied at the state, but state policy will eventually turn the other table.
It absolutely will.
Yes.
It has to.
Yes, and I think that they're looking at what the best way is to do that, and we're looking at the city of Palm Coast, what is the best way to do that locally? And just to add on the level 2 and the level 3, you want a healthy combination of both, because it's like charging your phone to a really fast charger. If you continuously charge your phone to a fast charger, you eventually kill the battery. So it's actually recommended that you do charge on level 2 more often than not. The DC fast charger actually ends up hurting your battery in long term.
Mr. Dance.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner O'Brien's comments. I think the things that my conversations with Holly and then looking at actually researching electric vehicles at one point as an option, I think it is a good point. One is there's an option for no cost to us, and the vendors would be receiving the money from the use of them. There are apps that electric car users use to locate their fueling sources. So especially as we are right on the major interstate, I think it offers opportunities for people to get off and explore the county, the city, while they're charging if they so need to. And rental fleets are increasing the number of electric vehicles that they're renting. And then they don't have chargers, so those rental fleets have to find places to charge if they're renting. And I think that would be potentially something that could help locally. But again, I would love to see, I'll keep an eye on the city's presentation because I would love to see your return on investment calculations to find out how you're going to recoup the investment to be able to profit off of these from the city's standpoint. I'll be interested in following that. I don't think we should be putting money up front for these things at all, but if it's no cost for the county taxpayers from our reserve, then I think there's the positives there. And the other option too, Commissioner O'Brien, is it's very possible this opens up more employees who have to drive in may not choose this, and it creates or opens up options for them to be able to have electric vehicles as their mode of operation coming to work if their distance precludes that from happening. But I'm okay supporting it, especially from us, as there's no upfront fees. I think it has a lot of opportunities for visitors and travelers to take part of what's happening in Flagler County and Palm Coast.
Any other comments?
So, I support them on private property, in private entities owning and operating charging stations. I don't really see the need for someone to roll up to the library and charge on a level 2 for 4 to 6 hours. You said the electric would be paid by whom?
The charging company, whichever one.
For the first 5 years or indefinitely?
Well, the contract's going to last 5 years. And then, you all, how we can write it is, if you decide to keep them, they can remove them. But if you decide to keep them, then you can also enter into another agreement. And I will say the level 2 chargers, people aren't pulling up to level 2s to charge their full car. They're just pulling up to level 2s to get that extra 15 to 20 miles while they're hanging out, doing whatever kind of leisure activities that they like.
So this is my thing. We're going to pay a match over in the city if you pay taxes in the city. As a taxpayer, you're going to pay a match there. We're going to drop a federally funded charging station that we may rip up in 5 years when we find out we have to fund it or whatever. So I support charging, charge at home, charge at private entities. Private entities want to put it in to make money, but I can't imagine long-term how this is going to end up being feasible for us, and it just seems like a expenditure of tax money that on the match on the federal level to put the charging station in that I don't know that we should commit to. So that's just my.
So let me just say that when we were first approached about this in administration, we were immediately saw the 80-20 match, and we said absolutely not. We got more into it with Ms. Rogers, and we found out all of the changes, and obviously this is not the same thing that was brought to you previously, so we thought it an opportunity to provide our residents with a service that had no tax implications, no cost to the county. Yes, there is a cost to the person who charges, but it's being paid to the third party. And I disagree with you, Commissioner Pennington. There will be plenty of people who will utilize the library, whether it be for an hour or 4 hours, and would pull up to that charging station, because we do have visitors who are there, who come to visit people or go to Flagler Beach or whatever, and they come into the library, whether they're using the library or its resources, coming to a program, or even just using one of our computers to get their travel documents that they need. So we do have that.
So who is paying the match? The city of Palm Coast?
The private entity.
So the private entity is paying the match?
Yes.
All right, to get that unit dropped?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
But you said that Palm Coast didn't think they'd go that way because they want to get the revenue, so they were going to pay the 20%.
That's a possibility, but it has yet to be
Taxpayers
determined.
paying the match.
But you briefed that. I didn't make that up. You said that.
You know, I put it in my presentation that that's what the city of Palm Coast is looking at for their part, not our part. The county, if we join in, we're not paying our 20% match. That would not be.
I understand that.
But the city of Palm
I
Coast.
didn't make that up, is what I'm saying.
No. Oh, absolutely not. The city of Palm Coast has not made a decision. As Maven said, they may choose to go the same route that we're talking about without the map. In other words, they may choose to use the same method where the charging, the private entity will pay the 20%. They haven't made that decision yet.
So Commissioner Sullivan, the reason why I think we're even considering it is, if you look at local governments, right, and, we are, only allowed a certain amount of revenue based our income tax based on what we can actually pull in, right? And we know we need funding. We need funding for our infrastructure. We need funding for our social programs. We know our residents rely on us to provide services. And so this is an opportunity with EV chargers to add an extra, just like a garbage pickup, except it's a different industry.
It's not like a garbage pickup. Excuse me. You're saying that it would be like us saying, we're going to build a gas station for cars because we know there are a lot of people who have a hard time paying for gas, so we're going to build a special government-supported gas station. That's really what you're saying. It's not the same. I am absolutely sure that if EVs over time become economically feasible, that the gas stations like Wawa will provide this service because you're trying to tell us there's a revenue source. I guarantee private industry, basically the gas stations, which already have a place where cars go, will put these facilities in, and we don't have to get involved at all.
If they are going to have these stations in the county, then are you proposing that they're going to put it on public land?
That's what the grant calls for. The grant calls for it to be on public lands.
Free. We're going to just give away land.
You can buy land. That was part of the grant as well.
Who can buy land?
The applying entity. So any of the local cities, governments, school systems could buy land, but technically you're giving them their parking spaces. But what I would say is that, at $1.22 per gallon, right now we don't provide the EV infrastructure that's necessary for our residents to even be able to have that switch. It would be really nice, I think, to provide that opportunity for our residents when they're thinking about electric vehicle purchases, that they have a place that they could go charge publicly when they're enjoying a park or something of that nature. Now, the private-public partnership with the City of Bunnell, we are looking into adding additional costs where we would be paying that private entity for those spaces.
I would just add, if I'm coming in from out of county and I had a list of options on the app and one of them said the library, that'd probably be the first place I'd go, so I'd have something to do while the car was charging, whether it's an hour or whatever. But I'll make a motion to approve consideration of the item 8D, consideration of the partner with the City of Palm Coast to pursue Department of Transportation charging station and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant program, and with our municipal partners to provide a letter of support to the City of Palm Coast. I will state that I think you said the county's position is the no cost option, right?
Yes.
If it ever comes to us in the grant. But
Absolutely.
thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 8D, partner with Palm Coast, supporting a letter supporting City of Palm Coast. I'll open up to public comment. Anybody in the public wish to address this?
Celia Puglisi. First of all, I have to appreciate Mrs. Pennington and Mr. Sullivan because it's the reality we have here. We have one city councilman at least that owns one of those vehicles. Do we have any idea how many wealthy people can afford those vehicles? Second, yes, it's not going to be free, Mr. Dance, because they want our land to sit in. We do have the city of Flagler Beach that has a serious parking problem, right? We have the city of Palm Coast in areas like the community center, they have a serious parking problem. With this growth, our parking spaces will diminish greatly, and we're gonna give free parking spaces for these private entities to profit. Now, let's look at this. This just came out that we need to let the big boys do this. Tesla and Ford have united to build. They're planning to build more of these stations. Let the big boys do that. Why my taxes are going to fund this? You know what happened? Here in Palm Coast, they spent a fortune years ago, and I opposed it openly, on the city-owned fiber network. Okay, fiber cable, spend a fortune. Oh, we're gonna make all this money. Guess what? It's busted because it does not create the revenue that even Mayor Alfin have mentioned this lately, that it was supposed to create. We got stuck with the expense just to go ahead and have some pins here. And you know what? It didn't work. Now we have Micronet installed all the fiber cable in front of our houses. And now who's a big boy? We need to let private entities, the big boys, fund what is necessary, not our hard-earned taxes, which will not secure the profit, like it did not secure with the city fiber network. We still have the same councilman there, owns one of these cards, and they're pushing it hard. We should not be funding this. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I'm against that, and I'm a Palm Coast Celia Puglisi resident. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Celia. Next speaker.
Vice Palm Coast. I just want to say, if this does go through, I'm kind of like in the middle with it, but I do agree with Andy as making the library the place. I don't know if you are aware that our airport sells leaded fuel, so this is kind of like an oxymoron to me. We're looking at greenhouse emissions when there are planes dropping leaded fuel all over our environment here. So to have it there seems like a big contradiction to me. So I do agree with you, Andy, with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Yes, Richard.
Good morning again. Richard Hamilton, Flagler County. I'd just like to sort of withdraw the remarks I made earlier about an interest in this subject, because it's clear that my interest in trails is not relevant at the moment to this particular discussion. It's a much minor issue. I mean, eventually I want to see certain trailheads. I want to have EV parking at them so visitors can come and park while they use the trails, and that there should be some charging stations for e-bikes and things along those trails. But that's not relevant to the discussion today. Other than that, I think you should support this, as long as you're not investing any money, that it's not going to benefit me as a resident, because if I do buy an EV, I've driven a hybrid for 20 years, so an EV will be next. But I won't be charging it in the county, I'll be charging it home. But to get visitors who might want to come, particularly to Flagler Beach, and enjoy the beach and charge their EV while they're here, that's possibilities down the road. But anyway, my concerns have been answered. Very informative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Seeing no one approach, I'll bring it back to the board. Commissioners, any other questions or
Mr.
comments?
Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just, again, just to summarize why I support this, there's no financial commitment to the county. There is, we don't even have to enter into one of these contracts. I'm supporting it from the standpoint of signing a letter saying that we're supporting the city's grant application. And at this point, if we want to have a more robust discussion, if an actual vendor comes before us and we have a particular parking spot that we're identifying, then we'll have that discussion. But for me, I support it because I think it's important to show good faith in supporting the city on this initiative. Thank you.
Ms. Pennington?
No, well, I was just going to say, we were going to use a support letter the last time, and the board decided against it. And it ended up being that we would be financially feasible to that particular grant. It was more than a letter of support. So it's just confusing to me that, and maybe that's one, can I get that clarified really quick? The parking spaces that we're identifying at the county lots, will they be put immediately into this grant, or is that just some sort of conceptual, they will be on that? Are we hard picking at this time and identifying and placing those parking spots into the grant for funding?
So only if you want to. The grant is due June 13th, so that is next week. And basically, if you just want to provide a letter of support, then that's wonderful too. We appreciate that. If you all do want to, at the minimum, put one at the library, it doesn't have to be all three. If you want to just try one, we can go for just one, or we can go for zero. But a letter of support does not mean that you will be an active participant as this grant. It's just showing your support.
Any other comments?
No, I haven't changed my mind.
Yeah, my sense is to approve this, but I do have problems with it. I will approve it knowing that before we do anything else in the county, this will come back to us. We're not going to let people come in here and do this without.
They still have to get the grant, so the grant hasn't been approved. So at this point, we're just entering into providing a letter of support for them to pursue the grant. And then if we choose to partner, we would be partnering in the future. Should they receive the money, at that time, we'd have to make that decision.
The locations, actually, I'm sorry, the locations are not movable if we do get the grant. So we actually do need to make the decision before June 13th on what locations you all would want them at. Letter of support doesn't need the locations, but like I said, at minimum, if you all wanted to do the library, it would take 2 parking spaces and it would cost the county no money.
Well, it does cost us money because they're giving some private entity the use of public property. That bothers me.
So would the motion maker consider changing their motion to just writing a letter of support without a commitment of parking spaces at this time in the county?
But what I hear you saying is if you get the grant, then we're going to have to identify public land to have them installed on.
No, if we get the grant and you just provide a letter of support, there is no other commitment from Flagler County. What I would say is that by providing public land for EV charging, you're providing residents an opportunity to pay $1.22 a gallon for gas, providing more money back into their pockets to circle that local economy that we really want to adjust for. So I know it is public land, and I know it is 2 parking spaces. And I know that if the 20% does get covered by a private entity, then it does go to the private entity. But right now, they're filling up at Shell. That's land. They're filling up at Wawa. That's land. You know, this is...
That's not public land. That's not public land.
Yes,
And
no, you're
I agree with
correct.
Mr.
Yes.
Sullivan. If this gets to be, if people start buying electric cars, and they're not buying them now, if they start buying them, then the gas stations will say, well, we can make money on this. So the charging stations will go right to the gas stations. That's where the charging stations will go as the demand increases, because they can make money. So we're going to give people free use of public land. They're not going to pay us a penny. That just doesn't seem right. So again, I agree with supporting the letter, just to be a good citizen for the county. But before we do anything, it's got to come back here, and we're going to have to hash this out, because
I might disagree with you on that. I would say that supporting this might not be a good citizen thing to do, because it's going to eventually probably hurt the EV industry by giving them these continual handouts from the government, rather than forcing them to have to face a competitive commercial society, which we have in the United States. So I think of my vote to say no on this is a good citizen move on my part.
It's goes right along with the current administration's push to put everything in electric, you know.
Right.
And
This is the green wave.
It is, yeah.
And has that money been approved yet, or is it in the budget for this year?
The funding has been approved.
In which bill?
And the bipartisan infrastructure bill, it's been approved.
From last year?
Yes, it's been
Okay,
approved for
that's all I
fiscal
want.
year
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah. Well, that was a great thing.
And I will say that the electrification initiative will end up saving residents money. We are looking at different solar projects that are actually going to be 3 cents a kilowatt hour instead of 12 cents a kilowatt hour that our residents are paying now, alleviating plenty of energy burden across the board. And then again, this gives us the availability to create domestic policy of our energy. Right now, we do not have the availability of where our fossil fuels necessarily come from. They're a volatile source, and they also dirty our air. So supporting this electrification initiative helps us create domestic policy that will really be a big ROI for our residents.
But there's also an educational component. I know Maven hasn't spoken to that, and I really think Maven should tell you about that educational component where they'll receive funding through this grant, and Daytona State will provide the education and what that would entail.
So Daytona State College right now has an electrical engineering program. And basically right now what they're looking at is really ramping up their EV efforts. They already have a section of it due to the current demand of EV infrastructure. And so this grant would sponsor 1,000 students to go through that program and get EV certified so they could actually provide the infrastructure needed for across the state. There's actually a shortage of electricians nationally. It's a big issue as we move forward. And so electricians provide good paying jobs for people that might not be, a traditional undergraduate student. This is a technical college, and it's a really good opportunity for those that would not want to go through a 4-year college degree program.
I'm going to leave the motion up there. I mean, in simple terms, this to me is just a way to market the city, the county, especially as far as tourism goes. It's the main intent is to make this a destination, and again, using technology, people will be able to see where these are located and be able to visit. Another option to get people to visit the county and spend some time here. And it's not really targeted to the people that own them here locally. They may be able to use them and take advantage of them, but I think it's a way to get people off of the interstate and visiting Flagler. And we give up a few parking spaces to do that. But I'll keep the motion as is. If it doesn't pass, you're welcome to try something else.
So did you make a motion? I'm sorry.
I did, yes.
I lost track.
I've made a motion for.
Yes, and I seconded it. and we've had discussion.
It's been moved
ad
and
nauseam.
seconded to approve item 8D. I'll open up to public comment. We did that.
We did that.
So we're back to the board. So, item 8D, letter of support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails.
Donnie,
Thank
do you
you.
want to float just a motion of support?
Sure. I would, Mr. Chair, if, as an alternative, I would offer a motion to simply write a letter of support for the city of Palm Coast's pursuance of this grant with no other encumbrance on the county other than a simple letter of support of their grant application, which we do for many, many organizations all the time.
Clarification on that. I thought that's what we just voted on,
No.
It was 2 parts.
that we might have to provide the 2 spaces.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Mr. O'Brien's motion. Open up to public comment. And the public wish to discuss this?
Celia Puglisi from Palm Coast. Again, we're going to be setting up a precedent, giving up land. I am going to insist again that we need to let this to the big boys, WABA, all the gas stations that are going to be opening this. We have plenty tourism in Flagler County, to the point that Flagler Beach is trying to control the crowds that are right there. And they don't have enough spaces as is. The city is running out of spaces on the public places, like the community center and other areas. And when you're going to have a car there 4 hours, sitting, just using the public spaces. So I think this is for private entities to be done, and with private entities profit, and we should not be getting into this. The government should not be getting into profiteering because, like I said with the city of Palm Coast, the fiber optic does not work. We get into private enterprise, the government, and then the taxpayers take the loss of their funds that are needed for many more things, like paving our roads and services, et cetera, et cetera. So I am against this again, and I hope the commission really do not approve this. Thank you.
Next speaker. Seeing no one approach, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Just
Yes.
one final discussion item. I am still unclear. I want to know what the difference is between what we just said no to and this motion. I'm not clear on what the difference is. Because I never heard the first motion fleshed out in words.
The first motion would have included identifying at least one, opting into the program and identifying at least one public parking space to possibly.
I never remember that as being part of the motion. That was a discussion after the motion was made. But anyway, that's okay. If that's what it is, I think we're voting on the same thing twice then.
We're not.
But I think we are.
It has if you look at the actual item, it has a and. So the first part is consideration to partner with the city of Palm Coast to pursue the discretionary grant with the partners. And the second part is and to provide a letter of support to the city of Palm Coast. So now the motion is to ditch the first part and just provide the letter of support for them to apply.
Okay.
Without us as a partner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah, this motion is just to say, okay, but it's got to come back to us if we're going to identify
I'll
free parking places.
One further
in
discussion.
public ways.
Here's what I think. Has Palm Coast decided on this yet, formally?
No.
No.
Okay, well, here's what I think. If that's true, I think we should table this issue until we see what Palm Coast does. For instance, if Palm Coast says, we're not in favor of doing this, we're wasting our time here.
I don't think they can go forward without the letter,
We already
correct?
have a motion
For
and a
applying for
Mr.
the
Chair,
grant? Or-
point of order, we have a motion on
I'm
the
just
floor
making
in a
my
second.
point, Andy. I'm just making my point.
And we had discussion, we had public comment, so.
I'll call the vote. All in favor of just a letter to the city of Palm Coast saying that we support them? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9, public hearings. 9A, legislative, second reading and adoption of amendments to Chapter 27 of the County Code related to solid waste. Mr. Hadid.
Yes, Commissioners, this is the second reading of the ordinance. It eliminates some archaic provisions because we no longer operate using a landfill resource outside the county. We also modernize it in some respects to account for instance, articulating what the franchise fees are, expressed as 7% for residential collectors, 3% for commercial collectors. We also prescribe a fixed fee for those properties that are residentially constructed and completed, but not within the time to make it to the tax roll. So there's a gap in terms of receiving services and being able to collect it through the tax roll. So this ordinance prescribes that the county will develop a fixed price for that gap period that residential property owners would pay, pending the time they were listed on the tax roll.
Commissioners, any questions, comments?
I haven't received any emails or anything. Has administration received any comments since the first hearing?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve 9A.
Motion to approve 9A legislative second reading and adoption of amendment to Chapter 27 of the County Code related to solid waste.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 9A. I'll open up to public comment. Anybody in the public wish to comment on this? Seeing no one approach, I'll bring it back to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. County Administrator.
Well, good morning. Just a few things real quickly. I wanted to let you know that the Florida State Guard had reached out through the Sheriff's Office with interest in leasing some space from Flagler County. In addition to the lease space, the Guard had requested some additional space in the county-owned buildings, such as like the jail admin. There's some additional training rooms and things of that nature. We had spoken to Sheriff Staley. He is in support of that effort as well as providing these other facilities. So I just was looking to get a consensus from this board to bring back a lease contract at your next meeting, which will be June 19th. So.
Yes.
I agree.
For me.
Agree.
Agree.
I have one question on that. So we would receive revenue if we do this?
The outline of the agreement, we haven't fully established. It is in a draft form. We're working with our legal team and the sheriff's legal team. There is financial compensation, whether it's an ongoing or whether it's a one-time allotment. I know that there was budget discussions where they were outlined in the state's budget. As far as I know, the governor has not signed off and finalized the budget. So there is still a little bit of uncertainty, but that's why I just wanted to get consensus from the board to continue working on this and hopefully bring it to you on your June 19th, where we'll have more.
Yeah, I've heard a different plan for that. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe the revenue side of it is not going to happen. It's more like, you know, we do something, they do something. And so I just think that in general, yes, but I do think there are a lot of details to be worked out on that.
And we're still working through those, but I just wanted to get consensus to at least bring it forward to you at your next meeting so that you can take a look. And we'll try to get that out to you as soon as we can so that you can read through that contract and details, and if you have any questions, we can
Mr.
get those
Chairman, one
answered.
more question. Is there any cost to us to make the facility acceptable to the people who are going to use it?
The details haven't been finalized, so it'd be premature for me to say that. Not that I know of, not anything above what we originally intended to do as part of regular maintenance and things like that. So it's not my understanding that there would be a huge cost on the county's behalf anyways.
Okay.
So I'll bring that forward then at the June 19th meeting. As you know, we're continuing to work on our budgets for fiscal year '24. We've got our first workshop this afternoon at 1 to take a look at the non-general fund budgets. On Friday, we were provided with an estimate of value from the property appraiser's office. That total value is about $14.3 billion, which represents a 12.83% increase over last year's estimate of value. At this time, it's too early to tell what millage rate will be required to meet the demands of providing county services, so we're still working through that. As I said, we just got the information last week. It's a requirement to have that by June 1st. So we're still working through what that looks like for the general fund, but just wanted to mention that to you if you hadn't heard. And with your approval, I'd like to add an Employee Appreciation Day to be observed on Monday, July 3rd. Moving forward, we will bring this type of request for your consideration as part of that annual calendar where we establish what days that county government's going to be closed. But just looking for your approval to do that.
Commissioners?
Sure.
Yep.
Yep.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And that concludes my report.
Mr. Hadid?
No report, thank you.
It's now our second community outreach. This 30-minute time period has been allocated for public comment for items not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the chair. Community outreach is now open. Seeing no one approach, I'll close community outreach and bring it back to the commission. Commissioners, this is your time to talk. Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciated attending the hands-on CPR training over at the EOC last Friday. I thought it was excellent, and I'm glad a lot of people took advantage of that. And it's important for us all to have at least some basic knowledge in case something happens to you sometime and you save somebody's life.
Mr. Dance.
Sure. Just public comment at the prior meeting when the youth groups were here commented about Wadsworth Park not having an AED device, but we do have one at the park in the, as I was told, we have one in the concession stand. So I just wanted to clarify that, and in case anybody, especially the youth groups, will know that that we do have that out there. So the Wadsworth Park is covered. Whether we need an additional one, I don't know, but we've got one out there. And just wanted to thank everybody for covering me for Memorial Day activities. We took a brief vacation trip away, just happened to coincide, but I appreciate y'all. And the county's activities from all the coverage that I saw were great. And so we supported Memorial Day from afar.
Thank you, Andy. Ms. Pennington.
I just want to address Ms. Weiss and Ms. Pugliese comments from earlier, just to let them know that I believe Commissioner Dance had asked when we set up the quarterly with the airport that the airport address noise issues at their next quarterly. So that should be coming up, I think, July or the first meeting in August, but so we are expecting that. It is potato season, and if you did not get potatoes from me, I will drop you some. So I spent a whole day in a field, and it was glory. I mean, it was just fun. So I will bring you some potatoes because I've got 100 pounds of them. So,
Mr. O'Brien.
Just wanted to say to the other commissioners, I appreciate the conversation we had on the charging stations, and just know, Commissioner Sullivan, philosophically, we're right on the same page. I, for sure, don't support any kind of industrial policy. I think, that is what makes our country great, is the fact that we have, we let the private sector take care of those things, and I think that should continue. I just came at this from the standpoint of supporting the city in their initiative. So
I'm
I just
happy to have discussions.
No, I don't. We don't. I just again just wanted to say that philosophically, I think we're on the same page. Just wanted to reinforce that with you. But that's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Petito, I have one issue. I received a complaint that a member of our planning board does not live in the county. And Mr. Salinas and I investigated it, and it appears that that's true. So I think we need to do something about that. Either that individual has to move back to the county, or we need to remove whoever it is from the board. So if you could, by the next meeting, could we get that resolved?
I will.
Because we
Thank
have
you.
to vote on that. I mean, we have to remove, but if they don't live in the county, they can't be on the planning board.
Correct.
So if you would look into that. And I don't have anything else other than the Memorial Day services were all good. We went to all of them. They were well done and well attended. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
We're adjourned.
See you back.